Hey everyone, welcome to Revenge and Regret. If you love shocking stories, real betrayals, and unforgettable moments of revenge, you're in the right place. On this channel, we dive deep into the most jaw-dropping tales that'll leave you speechless. Stay tuned because you won't want to miss a single twist. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss any of our mind-blowing stories. And if you've been through something wild yourself, share it in the comments. We might just feature it in our next video. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story.
The silence stretched, thick, heavy, loaded with the weight of decades, punctuated only by the shallow, ragged sound of her breathing across the suddenly vast space between us. I watched the color drain from her face, from her neck, watched it vanish like water soaking into dry ground. Her eyes, they were locked on mine, flickering with disbelief first, then dawning horror, a cold, sickening realization spreading through them. My own heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat trying to escape my chest, but strangely, outwardly, I felt this weird, almost unnatural calm. A stillness I had known I was capable of possessing. After years, decades even, all the little slights that felt enormous, all the endless moments I was overlooked, somehow pushed to the side. All the times her brilliance, her effortless shine, completely eclipsed any little light I managed to muster, leaving me feeling like I existed perpetually in her long, deep shadow, feeling smaller, lesser, inadequate. It all culminated. Every single grievance, every stored-up resentment, every moment of quiet, simmering hurt, it all condensed down into this single, cold, calculated moment. This single, deliberate action I had just taken. I held her gaze across the silent, stunned room. I waited for the explosion, the scream, the flood of furious denial. But it didn't come. Not immediately, anyway. Just that frozen, horrified, stunned silence. Her silence. My silence. And the silent, screaming question in the air between us. Was this it? Was this the revenge? Was this getting even? Whoa. Okay. Let that image, that feeling just sink in for a second. Me. Her. The moment. The fallout beginning before a single word was even exchanged. Pretty intense, right? And yeah, that snapshot you just got? Me standing there, relatively calm, while the person I'd essentially plotted against for months, the person who represented so much of my lifelong pain, stared back in horror. That was just the peak. The carefully orchestrated summit of a mountain of something that had been building, simmering, frankly, burning inside me for, well, truly, my entire life, from crayon age upwards. This isn't a heartwarming family story. This isn't even a simple, they wronged me, I felt bad, the end story. This is a story about resentment, about feeling invisible, about finally deciding to stop being passive. This is my golden child sister revenge story. The story of how decades of subtle family discrimination pushed me to a breaking point, and how I decided to hit back. And if any of that resonates with you, if you've ever felt overlooked, ever felt like someone else got all the breaks while you were stuck unnoticed, invisible less than, maybe take a moment to acknowledge that feeling, and perhaps consider hitting that subscribe button. Because to understand why I was standing there, feeling that chilling calm, why I felt justified in taking such a drastic step, you need the whole, messy, painful history. You need to go back. Way back. Back before that frozen silence, back to the very beginning of the discrimination. Back to when she was born. Sarah. My sister. She came into the world 2 years after me. I was a toddler, barely understanding the concept of a sibling, but even then, I sensed the shift. The world seemed to tilt towards her. I know that sounds dramatic, like some sort of cosmic jealousy, but it's how it felt. She was by all accounts an easy baby. Content. Smiled a lot. Slept through the night remarkably early. While I, according to the family anecdotes that became part of my origin story, was a difficult infant. Cried a lot. Was colicky. Needed constant attention. Oh, Sarah's such an angel. I'd hear people say, visiting our house, peering into her crib. So quiet. Then, a slightly weary smile towards me. She's certainly much less trouble than my name was at this age. Casual comments, spoken without thought. Probably true, biologically. But when you hear these things little by little, woven into the narrative of who you are from your earliest consciousness, it starts planting tiny, almost invisible seeds of comparison. The quiet foundation of a garden of resentment is being tended without anyone even seeing the shovel break the soil. Elementary school. This is where the golden child phenomenon really bloomed. Sarah wasn't just easy, she was effortlessly talented. Academically, she seemed to soak things up like a sponge. Top grades came without apparent struggle. Athletically, she had a natural grace, picking up sports instinctively. Socially, she was a magnet. Funny, charming. Everyone wanted to be her friend. My own childhood felt normal. Average maybe. I worked hard for my A's and B's. I was okay at sports, joined teams, but sat on the bench a fair amount. I had my group of close friends, the quieter kids like me. Teachers liked me fine, gave me solid progress reports. Nothing that prompted gasps of awe at parent-teacher conferences. Meanwhile, Sarah was starring in the school play as the lead. I auditioned and got tree number 3, literally standing still with my arm in a branch costume, a moment of quiet humiliation that somehow symbolized our places perfectly. She won the citizenship awards, the academic achievement pins, the most improved awards, even when she was already great. At home, it was amplified. My report cards? A brief glance. Good job, honey. A polite smile. Done. Sarah's? Held up for scrutiny and praise. Pinned to the fridge. Phone calls to grandparents listing her accomplishments. Her artwork? Center of the fridge. Mine? Pinned somewhere to the side. Her soccer trophies started populating the mantelpiece until it looked like a shrine. My participation ribbons? Stayed in my room. I wasn't asking for equal trophies, I was asking for equal enthusiasm. For my achievements, which cost me significant effort, to feel seen. To feel important. Not just adequate. Expected. The bare minimum for existence within the family. The Christmas bike incident is etched in my memory, a crystallization of the dynamic. I was 10, Sarah 8. I had spent months wanting this specific art set, professional quality colored pencils, and sketching pads. It felt so grown up, tied to my genuine passion for drawing. I dropped heavy hints, pored over catalogs, saved some allowance. Opening it on Christmas morning, it was everything I dreamed of. I felt a swell of pure happiness, excitement buzzing through me. Then, Sarah's big gift reveal. A brand new, gleaming bicycle. Bright red, with all the bells and whistles. She shrieked with unadulterated joy, jumping up and down. And in an instant, the energy in the room shifted completely. All eyes on Sarah. All the parental cameras, not literal but felt, focusing on her radiant joy, her fantastic new bike. My beautiful, longed-for art set, just seconds ago the absolute center of my universe, suddenly felt small, childish, utterly unimportant. I sat there, on the floor, clutching the art set, a lump forming in my throat, feeling the familiar prickle of tears, the hot flush of being overlooked. My parents didn't notice. They were too busy sharing Sarah's delight, basking in the reflected glow of her golden moment. That was it. That was the blueprint. Her moment, automatically, effortlessly, magnificently eclipsing mine. And my parents, completely blind to my quiet deflation, only seeing the brilliance of their younger daughter. Adolescence intensified the feeling of being an orbiting, dimmer satellite. Sarah was prom queen, yearbook editor, captain of everything. Popularity flowed to her like gravity. Boyfriend drama, fitting in, high school anxieties, she seemed to navigate it all with more confidence, less internal turmoil than me. While I struggled with typical teenage self-doubt, body image issues, the agonizing quest for identity, she seemed to glide through it. Again, my path wasn't bad. I had good friends, got into my niche interests, did well enough in school with persistent effort. I wasn't unpopular or a recluse. I was just not Sarah. Not the golden standard. And this dynamic manifested constantly. Family dinners where her stories of the latest school triumph or social event dominated the conversation. My attempts to share something interesting from my day, a book I read, a problem I solved, a play I saw, often met with polite but easily redirected interest. The conversation would invariably circle back to Sarah. What she was doing, what she was planning, how she felt about X, Y, or Z. I wasn't exactly ignored. It was more insidious than that. It was the subtle but persistent message that her life was simply more inherently fascinating, more valuable as conversational currency, more important in the grand scheme of family pride. This feeling of being subtly discriminated against, not by active malice, but by consistent, perhaps even unconscious, prioritization of one child over another by the very people who were supposed to be my foundation, it didn't just build up. It festered. Resentment is like mold, growing quietly in damp, unseen corners. You tell yourself you're crazy, sensitive. That parental love isn't a finite resource. It's infinite. But infinite love doesn't mean infinite, equal celebration or recognition. The hundreds of micro-moments, the ignored enthusiasms, the casually dismissive comparisons. Sarah's always been the more athletic one. Bless her. The sheer volume of attention focused on her life progression while mine was acknowledged with a nod. The cumulative effect was a slow, steady erosion of my self-worth. It didn't make me hate my sister, not truly. How could I? She was, for the most part, genuinely lovely, albeit accustomed to the spotlight. It poisoned my relationship with her, introducing this layer of complex envy and bitterness underneath affection. And it severely strained my relationship with my parents, introducing a barrier of unspoken disappointment and feeling fundamentally unseen. College applications. Again, a stark reminder of where I stood. Sarah aimed for big state U, the respectable, known entity, geographically convenient. My choice, a smaller, out-of-state college with a specific, somewhat niche program perfectly tailored to my aspirations, felt like a bold, independent step. A step into MY future, defined by MY interests. My parents' reaction? Guarded. Worried. It's so far away. Are you sure you can't find a similar program closer to home? Big state is good, and you know people there. Their hesitation felt less about concern for my well-being and more about a lack of enthusiasm for my non-golden child path. When Sarah received her acceptance to Big State, as expected, given her grades and application, the celebration was immense. Dinner out, phone calls, social media posts filled with proud parent emojis. It was treated like a triumphant conquest. When my acceptance letter arrived for the out-of-state college, I genuinely wanted the college with the perfect program for me. Oh, that's nice, honey. Good for you. You'll figure it out. A lukewarm acknowledgement. A pat on the back. That was it. Again. Her conventional step was a grand parade. My unconventional, but perfect for me step was noted. Accepted. Barely celebrated compared to the fanfare surrounding her perfectly anticipated achievement. The disparity was like a physical blow, solidifying that feeling of being consistently less than in their eyes. This feeling of being discriminated against, consistently existing as the less favored child in the family narrative, subtle but relentless, built up a quiet fury inside me. Resentment wasn't enough anymore. I started carrying it like a weapon I didn't know how to wield. I felt a desperate, burning need for redress, for justice. Not cosmic justice, but familiar, within the family justice. A chance to feel just once like I wasn't the also-ran. A chance for my existence, my choices, my impact to be undeniably seen and felt by the people who kept looking past me towards her light. I stopped wanting just recognition. I started wanting leverage, a rebalancing, a chance to hit the scales myself. I started wanting revenge. I wanted them to see me, to see what happens when the quiet one decides to stop being quiet. The turning point wasn't one single dramatic event, but the slow, corrosive realization that the dynamic was ingrained. Permanent. Waiting for them to change, to suddenly see me fully, felt like waiting for a mirage. The resentment curdled. It became an active, simmering desire for something that would disrupt their comfortable world, just like their overlooking disrupted mine. It happened a few years into my career after college. Something significant professionally for me. A major promotion to senior manager, after years of grinding, proving myself in a competitive field that I had chosen, in a city I had moved to, defining my own path far from the golden glow of home. It was a genuine achievement. Hard one. A validation of my abilities, my perseverance. A real milestone. I was buzzing with pride. I called my parents first, eager to share, hoping against hope that this big, undeniable career success would finally land differently. Hey Mom, Dad, guess what? I got promoted to senior manager. I practically shouted into the phone, excitement bubbling. There was a fractional pause on the other end. Then Mom's voice, slightly hesitant. Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Stilted, measured, lukewarm. My initial burst of joy faltered. And then came the almost immediate pivot. Speaking of exciting things, you won't believe who Sarah ran into at the airport yesterday. Do you remember Mr. Henderson, her old economics professor from sophomore year at Big State? She ran into him, and he remembered her name and asked how she was doing.
Just like that.
My significant, hard-fought career milestone relegated to a brief, almost dismissive acknowledgement, completely overshadowed by a casual, random, entirely inconsequential meeting my sister had with an old professor. A story that wasn't even an accomplishment, just a piece of trivial social interaction. It wasn't a job offer, or an award, or anything quantifiable as success. It was literally Sarah ran into someone from college. And that became the conversational focus. The exciting news. My bursting excitement crashed and burned. That lukewarm initial reaction, followed by the instantaneous, enthusiastic pivot back to the minutiae of Sarah's life. It was so familiar, it was physically painful. It wasn't new, but this time, after that specific promotion, after that specific effort, after all those years of quiet striving, it felt like a deliberate, casual annihilation of my worth. A chilling confirmation that my achievements would always be filtered, diminished, compared, and ultimately overshadowed by the effortless radiance of the golden child. Later that week, when the family was together for a semi-regular dinner, maybe my turn to cook, putting in effort, my promotion came up again briefly. My dad, beaming across the table, mentioned it in passing. Oh yes, my name got a promotion. Good for her, he said, his voice flat, almost an afterthought. And then, his face lighting up, he launched into a lengthy, detailed update about Sarah potentially getting accepted into this highly competitive, very prestigious international volunteer program she'd applied for. News which, the delicious irony wasn't lost on me even then, hadn't even been confirmed yet. It was just the possibility, the interview stage. But my parents were already talking about it as if it were a done deal, puffing up their chests, linking their pride directly to her anticipated global good works. It wasn't even about what Sarah did this time. It was about what she might do. The conversation then spiraled into enthusiastic discussions about her potential international travel, the prestige of the program, how amazing it would be for her career, and how it showed her true character, and how proud they were that she was pursuing something so noble. I sat there, the recently promoted, successfully adulting, quiet older sister, the acknowledged but forgotten one, feeling the familiar knot in my stomach tighten into a hard, cold ball. Senior manager.
Real job.
Real responsibility. Real climb. Reduced to good for her. Completely overshadowed by a potential opportunity that might not even happen. Something inside me fractured permanently that night. The quiet acceptance that it's just how they are. Shattered. It wasn't fair. It had never been fair. And waiting for them to suddenly wake up, to get it, to see me, to celebrate me in the genuine, unadulterated way they celebrated her, was an exercise in futility. It simply wasn't going to happen naturally. That deep-seated feeling of being consistently discriminated against, sidelined in my own family narrative, it had reached a boiling point. I realized, with chilling clarity, that if my life, my hard-fought successes, my identity, were always going to be filtered through the lens of Sarah's brilliance and steal her thunder anyway, making me feel small in the process. Maybe I needed to stop waiting for them to see me and force them to look. Maybe I needed to shift the game. Maybe I needed to engineer a moment where my actions had such undeniable impact, created such inescapable disruption, that they would be forced to confront something other than Sarah's effortless path. Impact they couldn't overlook. Impact that might, just maybe, make them feel a fraction of the discomfort, the confusion, the consequence of overlooking the less-than-golden child. I didn't just want recognition anymore. The desire had morphed. I wanted redress. A rebalancing. A reckoning. I wanted revenge. I wanted them to see me. See the power in the person they had consistently looked past. See what happens when the quiet one decides to step out of the shadow, not by shining brighter on her own terms, but by introducing darkness to their golden world. The idea for the revenge plan wasn't a single bolt of lightning. It started as a dark thought, a seed of rebellion planted in the fertile ground of years of resentment. Petty ideas flickered first, spreading an embarrassing secret about Sarah, doing something mildly disruptive at a family event. But these felt small, unsatisfying, not commensurate with the scale of the lifelong slight I felt. If it was about making them feel the consequence of overlooking me, it had to be something bigger. Something significant enough to penetrate the protective bubble around the golden child narrative. I realized her golden status wasn't solely about innate ability. It was profoundly amplified by my parents' unwavering, vocal, enthusiastic, almost relentless favoritism and public promotion of her. Their narrative wasn't just Sarah is great. It was Sarah is destined for unique, effortless greatness, and we, the parents, are her brilliant, proud orchestrators, basking in her reflected glory. If I could disrupt that narrative, introduce undeniable discord into that carefully crafted symphony, puncture that golden bubble with a pinprick of cold, hard reality, perhaps they would be forced to acknowledge the space that disruption created. The space where I had always been, quietly existing, unlauded in comparison. The plan gradually coalesced around leveraging something specific and highly anticipated in Sarah's life at the time. The competitive international volunteer program. This was her current golden project. My parents were already pre-celebrating it. This was the target. This expected achievement. This glittering step on her predestined path to effortless global success. My plan wasn't about fabricating lies or completely ruining her life. It wasn't the stuff of movie villainy, though the intensity of my rage sometimes whispered those darker possibilities. It was about orchestrating a strategic reveal, a carefully timed truth bomb about something fundamentally real and related to this specific anticipated achievement. Something that wouldn't permanently disable her or her future, but would introduce significant, undeniable, and highly inconvenient complication. A very public, very uncomfortable complication that would snatch the narrative and my parents' self-satisfied pride and premature celebratory instincts off the rails. It would force a pause, a scramble, a mess. It required careful planning, immense patience, which felt like a dark irony, given how patient I'd been my whole life waiting to be truly seen, access to information she wouldn't willingly share, and yes, a cold sort of calculation that honestly scared me a little. I had to find leverage. Hard information. A vulnerability directly connected to the successful outcome of this specific anticipated program. It took months of quiet observation. Listening to snippets of conversation others thought were insignificant. Discreet inquiries through third-party online networks that wouldn't be traceable back to me. A bit of technological finesse, learning skills I never thought I'd need. Nothing illegal or deeply nefarious, but clever enough to access shared digital spaces I wasn't supposed to be monitoring, piecing together fragmented digital breadcrumbs she thought were private. All done in secret under the radar, outside of their notice. A secret project for the one whose life was always overshadowed. There were so many moments I almost backed out, lying awake at night, the cold reality of my plan washing over me. The potential consequences spinning out of control. Is this just petty, ugly spite? Am I becoming the villain, I feel they made me? Am I going too far? What if this blows up worse than I planned, damages her in a way that can't be undone? I'd picture her face, her genuine joy about this opportunity, the potential hurt or anger my actions would cause her, and a profound pang of guilt, maybe even grief for the sisterhood that had always been complex, would flicker. But then, the memory of all those moments would flood back. The Christmas morning with the bike, the dismissed promotion, the crushing weight of consistently being less than, the dinner conversation hijacked by a potential volunteer placement, the chronic, aching feeling of invisibility, and the guilt would recede, replaced by that hard, cold resolve. They needed a wake-up call. They needed to understand, perhaps only through experiencing a fraction of the discomfort, the consequence, the confusion of their perfectly curated golden world being shaken. They needed to see what it felt like to have a narrative disrupted. They needed to see me as an actor in their lives, not just a background player. I confided in absolutely no one. This felt intensely personal, intensely solitary. My dark little project. My secret. The counterpoint to Sarah's life, which always felt like everyone's project, everyone's news to share and celebrate. This was mine to control. The perfect opportunity presented itself months later, once I had all the necessary pieces, all the confirmed, undeniable information. An event. Not just any family gathering, but a significant milestone event where Sarah's potential success with this specific program was not just likely to be mentioned, but practically guaranteed to be the center of conversation. The stage was set. The players were gathered. The energy was anticipating fanfare. The ideal, horrible, perfect moment for a controlled detonation of the truth I carried. My heart rate would double, maybe triple, every time I thought about it. The physical manifestation of the mix of gut-wrenching nerves and grim, determined anticipation was strangely intoxicating. It felt powerful, in a way I never had before. A dark, uncomfortable power. The day of the event arrived. My palms were cold and clammy, despite the warmth of the spring afternoon. My stomach was a battlefield, occupied by equal parts churning dread and steely resolve. I dressed carefully, choosing something understated, designed not to draw attention, which felt ironic given what I planned. Sarah was there, of course, arrived earlier, already circulating, her usual charming, radiant self, unaware of the meticulously placed landmine waiting in her path. My parents were already there too, early, circulating amongst friends and family, beaming, visibly puffed up with pride, probably already subtly hinting, or not so subtly outright stating, their confident feeling about Sarah's expected imminent good news regarding the program. The air crackled with anticipation, not mine, but everyone else's, anticipating Sarah's next step onto a larger stage. Conversation was flowing easily. The usual comfortable family banter. Cousins catching up. Anecdotes being shared. The sound of laughter. A feeling of ease and familiarity that, to me, felt increasingly alien given the weight I carried. And then, as if on cue, precisely as I had both dreaded and anticipated, someone directly addressed Sarah, initiating the pivot. So, Sarah? Any final word yet on the anticipated international program? We're all practically holding our breath. My mom jumped in immediately, naturally. Her voice cutting through the general murmur, her tone full of bright, barely contained pride. Oh, we're just bursting with anticipation, she chirped, beaming at Sarah. We have such a good feeling about this one. We know how perfect it is for her. She's worked so hard. And Sarah, with that same easy confidence, that natural ability to hold court and bask in the attention, a trait I both admired and resented with equal measure, started talking about the final stages of the process, framing the positive outcome as practically a done deal, accepting the wave of premature congratulations flowing towards her. My moment. The calculated opening I had waited for. The stage was perfectly set. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird fighting to be free. Now or never. The decision, though made months ago, felt terrifyingly immediate. My hand trembled slightly, just the smallest tremor. I waited for a tiny lull in the conversation, perhaps when Sarah paused to take a sip of her drink, or when someone else interjected a brief comment. I stepped slightly forward, just a small, deliberate movement to gently shift attention. Just enough for people to turn and look at me. They did. A few faces turned, eyebrows raised perhaps, mildly curious why the quiet one was suddenly interjecting. I think I even managed to surface a small, tight smile. A ghost of a smile that didn't reach my eyes. And I spoke. I delivered the information. The inconvenient truth I had uncovered. The complicating factor. The significant problem related directly to her anticipated program acceptance that wasn't just a minor hiccup, but a very real, potentially deal-breaking issue. The truth I had carefully verified. It was undeniable. It wasn't delivered with shouting. Not yet. There was no dramatic accusation. It was delivered calmly. My voice was low, steady, perhaps a little sharper than usual, but controlled. I stated the facts, clearly and succinctly. The details of the complication I had unearthed. The thing about her anticipated achievement that introduced immediate, unavoidable doubt. That created significant, undeniable problems she had seemingly tried to hide or minimize. That was completely, irrevocably, inconveniently true. I made sure to use phrases that subtly highlighted my source of information, suggesting diligence, not just gossip, implying I had done my homework, verified what I knew. And maybe, just maybe, there was a hint of something else laced through my tone. Not malice, not triumph, not yet anyway. Something colder. Perhaps a quiet sort of grief. Grief that they had created this situation. Grief that they had pushed me to this. That their long-standing blindness had necessitated my destructive vision. And suddenly, there we were. Just like I told you at the very start of the story. The background noise of the party just stopped. Sarah's eyes locking onto mine across the stunned silence. Her face, draining of all color, a stark white canvas where her easy charm usually resided. The confusion in her eyes, quickly replaced by a dawning, horrific understanding. She knew instantly that I knew, and that I had just broadcast it. The party atmosphere, instantly curdling into something tense, something brittle. Confused whispers erupted, faces turning towards Sarah, towards me. Disbelief.
Shock.
Undeniable tension thickening the air until it felt hard to breathe. My parents frozen mid-sentence maybe, their beaming faces hardening, crumpling, shifting into pure, furious disbelief as the implications of my words sank in, their gazes snapping from Sarah to me and back again, desperate to find someone to blame.
Yes.
This exact moment, the exact feeling, the absolute stillness followed by the rush of chaos. That was the callback.
The point of no return.
The point of fracture, for many things. My revenge wasn't a cathartic scream. It was the quiet, deliberate, strategic unveiling of something inconveniently, devastatingly true that completely derailed their comfortable, golden narrative. Right there. In front of the people they cared most about, seeing that narrative reinforced. And what followed immediately after? Well, that was the inescapable, toxic consequence. The raw aftermath of hitting precisely where I knew it would hurt the most. Not just Sarah, but their pride in her and the perfect family image they cherished. What happened immediately after that precise moment, as the air vibrated with unspoken shock, chaos erupted. It wasn't a physical fight, not like you see in movies, but a rapid, devastating disintegration of social order and familial comfort. My parents, recovering from their initial freeze, rounded on me. Their shock quickly mutated into a cold, hard, furious disbelief. Their faces were livid. "What are you doing?" My mom hissed, low and viciously, her usual gentle demeanor completely gone. "Why would you say that?" "To her?" "To us?" My dad roared, his voice shaking with rage. "How could you do this?" Their priority, their immediate, guttural reaction, wasn't concern for Sarah's suddenly revealed complication. It wasn't an attempt to understand the situation. It was to protect the golden child, to protect the meticulously constructed, perfect family with perfect children narrative I had just shredded live, in front of an audience. Blame immediately fell on me. I was the instigator, the problem, the saboteur. Not the actual issue I had revealed, or Sarah's part in creating that issue. Their rage was blinding, a terrifying mirror of the low-level, burning resentment I had carried in silence for years. Sarah's initial shock evaporated. Her face became a mask of pure, cold fury. She didn't scream.
She didn't cry.
She just stared at me, eyes narrowed, radiating contempt. Like I was some alien creature that had invaded her world, not the sister who had quietly navigated its edges her whole life. The accusation in her gaze was a tangible force, louder than any shout. I had hurt her, intentionally,
Publicly.
and in that moment, witnessing her raw pain and anger, a complex feeling registered within me. A tiny, unfamiliar pang of something, not quite regret yet, but an undeniable acknowledgement of the magnitude of the damage I had just inflicted. I had hit precisely where I aimed. The gathering imploded. The careful facade of polite celebration completely shattered. The tense, emotional energy was unbearable. People didn't know where to look, who to talk to. Conversations died. The sound of uncomfortable shuffling feet filled the space. Cousins avoided eye contact. Friends of the family mumbled awkward goodbyes and filtered away quickly, escaping the palpable tension, buzzing with shocked gossip. The ride home with my parents was an absolute, seething, airless silence. You could cut the tension with a knife. It felt colder, heavier, more final than any shouting match could have been. Later that night, and over the next few days and weeks, the communication, when it happened, was fueled by cold anger and profound disappointment. There were furious phone calls, punctuated by slammed receivers. Heated emails filled with accusations. Demands for explanation from them. Yes, but followed swiftly by a complete refusal to listen when I tried, stumbling over my words, through tears, to articulate the years of feeling unseen, the accumulation of casual slights, the burning resentment, the promotion incident, the sheer unfairness of the chronic favoritism. It fell on deaf ears. It was dismissed, categorized, boxed away neatly as just trying to cause trouble, being dramatic, always being jealous of Sarah, making everything about you. They simply would not grasp the root cause of my actions. The subtle, corrosive discrimination I had experienced in their eyes simply did not exist. Only my apparently malicious, unprovoked attack on their golden child and their family piece did. The fallout, extending far beyond that single night, has been immense, devastating, complex. My relationship with my parents is irrevocably strained. There's a permanent chill there, a pervasive disappointment in me, a wariness that feels heavier, more constant than any overt anger. They view me as the aggressor, the difficult one, the instigator of conflict, the one who broke the family harmony, their priority remaining that superficial harmony above true understanding or repair. My relationship with Sarah, it's practically non-existent now. The already complicated sisterhood fractured into a million sharp pieces.
We barely speak.
Limited contact at mandatory family functions is stilted, distant, laced with a heavy, unspoken history and layers of mutual resentment. Hers for my deliberate act of sabotage, mine for the lifetime of being overlooked that fueled it. The connection, while perhaps always shadowed, feels irrevocably broken by this intentional wound I inflicted. She was hurt. I hurt her. Knowing that, acknowledging that I chose to hurt her, that sits with me. Did her anticipated achievement ultimately still happen, despite my intervention? Yes, mostly. Life is rarely so cleanly broken. But it came with complications she had to navigate, questions she had to answer, and certainly without the easy, unquestioning wave of pure celebratory fanfare my parents would have provided. I did succeed in making it less smooth, less effortlessly golden. I introduced grit into the machine. But did the revenge fix anything? Did it heal the wound of discrimination? Did it erase the years of feeling invisible? Did it magically make my parents suddenly see and validate me in the way I had always desperately craved?
No.
Not really. Not in the way I had perhaps naively hoped in the darkest corners of my planning mind.
They were forced to acknowledge my existence, yes.
My impact. My capacity to cause disruption. But not in the way I'd needed. They saw my anger, but they did not seem to fully grasp or acknowledge the deep, long-festering wound that fed it. They saw the weapon I wielded, but not the pain that forged it. The golden child, Sarah, remains, at least in their eyes, the golden child. Perhaps a little tarnished around the edges by reality and inconvenient truths I revealed, but still firmly, fundamentally, on her pedestal of favoritism. The core dynamic, the subtle, insidious discrimination, the overwhelming focus on her relative to me, hasn't fundamentally changed. If anything, they just have a new, more significant, more tangible, and for them more justifiable reason now to label me as the difficult one, the resentful one, the one who can't just be happy for her sister. Was it worth it? This is the question that hangs in the air for me now, years later, as I navigate the altered landscape of my family. The question I ask myself on quiet nights. Was the fleeting moment of power, the grim satisfaction of hitting back, worth the profound damage to my core familial relationships? Financially? There was no gain, thankfully no significant loss for me directly. Professionally? It was unrelated, kept separate. Relationally? It severely, maybe irrevocably, damaged the most fundamental relationships in my life, with my parents and my sister. Emotionally? The initial, adrenaline-fueled satisfaction, that grim sense of perverse justice in the moment, the feeling of finally maturing enough to cause such disruption, it was powerful, yes. But it was also intensely brief. Quickly, tragically, replaced by the heavy, crushing burden of consequence, of loneliness, of navigating fractured family bonds, of witnessing the ongoing disappointment in their eyes. The deep-seated resentment I carried for so long? It hasn't vanished completely. It's just transformed into a different kind of low-level, chronic ache. A sadness, maybe, a regret perhaps not specifically about what I revealed, because the truth was the truth, but about the desperate, destructive way I felt I had to reveal it. What I lost in seeking that win. What I damaged in the pursuit of even. Perhaps the only thing this whole experience changed fundamentally, irrevocably, was me. I learned, with chilling clarity, that I was capable of something cold, calculated, and deeply wounding. That I could be driven by pain, by years of neglect and resentment, to act outside my normal character, to wield information as a weapon. It forced me to confront the true, toxic depth of my own stored-up hurt and the poisonous nature of carrying that level of resentment for so long. I claimed my space, yes. I forced them to see me, but in the most damaging, alienating way possible. It was less about illuminating my own intrinsic worth or my own quiet light, and far more about momentarily dimming hers and fundamentally disrupting the comfortable narrative they had built. That golden child sister revenge strategy came with a heavy, heavy price tag attached to it. The cost was born in strained silence, in emotional distance, in the lingering feeling of isolation. So here I am, years later. My life didn't magically become easier or fundamentally fairer. The deep-seated feeling of discrimination wasn't magically erased by that one act. The relationship with my sister and parents remains distant, cautious, marked by that day. There's no clean resolution, no lessons learned, and we all moved on ending. Just the quiet, ongoing, deeply felt consequence of an action born of decades of being overlooked, a painful reaction to systemic invalidation. It's a lonely path sometimes, navigating these dynamics after blowing them up. This golden child sister revenge changed the shape of the familial dynamics. Yes, it broke them, but not in a way that brought true healing or sustainable connection. It turns out getting even doesn't necessarily mean finding peace, or even genuine recognition. It often just means introducing a new, deeper layer of damage to navigate. Discrimination within families is an insidious, painful thing, isn't it? Whether subtle or overt. And the long-term impact of parental favoritism or treating siblings differently runs deep, shaping people's identities and relationships in ways you can't always predict, pushing them to extremes. This was my extreme response to years and years of that low-level, constant pain. My golden child sister revenge. I got even. I disrupted their narrative. But I'm still living with the cost. Still trying to figure out what, if anything, I truly gained that outweighs the profound damage I caused, both to them and to myself. It's a difficult story to tell, a difficult set of circumstances to have lived through, a difficult way to have learned these hard lessons about resentment, visibility, and the corrosive nature of unaddressed pain. A difficult life, navigating these complex, now fractured, family dynamics. If you've been in a situation where favoritism or feeling invisible or discriminated against felt overwhelming within your own family, I see you. It leaves marks that don't always show on the surface. It makes you feel things and consider actions you never thought you would. This was just my messy, painful, maybe ultimately destructive way of trying, finally, to be seen, to be counted, to matter enough to cause a tremor. A difficult lesson.